everybody. Welcome to ABA Inside Track, the podcast that's like reading in your car, but safer. I'm your host, Robert Perry Cruz, and with me as always are my fabulous co-hosts.
Hello, Rob. It's Diana.
Hi, Rob. It's Jackie.
What are you reading there, Jackie? You seem like you almost missed your cue there.
I almost did, because I was trying to make the font bigger because my eyes are poor. I was pulling up my article of the day. The article du jour, one might say. And I need to make the font 200 so that I can read it.
Oh, I see. I have terrible eyesight. Terrible. What is it? I'm
Vision.
I'm nearsighted. Yes, my vision is awful, but it has allowed that my glasses are powerful that I think I'll always be able to read okay. So all my fonts and all my Kindles, I always turn it to the tiniest, because then you read one page, you're like, I might have just read 7 pages. Who knows? You know, I'm really flying through this book now.
So I also have contacts, and my eyes are probably worse than yours. And contacts do not correct them.
Oh, how bad are your eyes?
My contacts are minus 9.5.
Oh, they are worse than... You were the first person I've ever met who actually has contacts
minus 9.5 in one eye and minus 9 in the other eye.
Oh, I'm minus 8 and minus 8.5.
Yes!
I've never... Everyone's always like, I have pretty bad eyesight. I'm like, what's your prescription? Like, oh, it's like minus 3. And I'm like, go to hell with your good eyes. Get out of here.
With your good eyes.
With your good eyes. I got terrible eyesight. Dinah, you want to share your high power correction numbers?
I don't remember them, but they're not nearly as bad as yours. It's like -2.
So you poser. But this isn't a podcast.
I just wear the glasses to make me look cool.
But this isn't our podcast about ocular correction. This is a podcast about behavior analysis and behavior analytic research. This is a special time of year. It's not, a special holiday or anything. Well, maybe it is. It is to us, and perhaps it is to you. It's Supervision September. It's the time of year when we all get together and think about how we supervise one another in the field of behavior analysis. We sing our supervision songs and give supervision presents, but we can't accept them. We just give them, but we cannot accept them.
We're not even supposed to give them, Rob.
Oh, we're not even supposed to give them?
Nope.
So we think about giving them, and then we think better of it.
And then we pull out our ethical handbook and say, oh no, we cannot give or accept gifts.
I would say if it's a cultural reason that it might damage a relationship, I believe you now are allowed to accept gifts. So the culture of good supervision wants to think about giving good gifts and think about receiving our good supervision gifts.
If you dunk the ethics handbook in a bathtub and the oily film that comes off of it is what allows you to accept culturally appropriate gifts, but not the actual ethics guidebook.
Yes. It's an apocryphal tome
exactly
somewhere. Oh boy. So Supervision September is that time of year when we talk all about supervision all month long, and this is our last episode about supervision. So we've been talking all about supervision really specifically as it relates to the supervisor's relationship to staffing and setting up good opportunities for staffing. We've talked about staff feedback. We talked about staff burnout, and then we decided to end with one that is hopefully more positive, and that's staff rewards. We all like to give rewards. We know that rewards, well, not exactly rewards, but we know that reinforcement can function to change behavior by increasing its probability of occurrence. So you'd think it would be as easy as saying, if we deliver some sort of reward to our staff for engaging in behavior we like, we'll see more of it. And the answer is... maybe, sometimes, in some respects, not all the time, depends. It's never easy, is it?
Well, Rob, we just don't know.
I feel like we should have called this, it's not Supervision September so much as, Suspicious September. Like, we suspect these might do something, but nobody knows. The research isn't out there. Oh, well. But we'll be talking about what research there is, or at least some of the research there is, all about staff rewards. And we have 3 articles tonight. They are Employee of the Month programs. Do they really work? By Johnson and Dickinson, and that's in the Journal of Organizational Behavior Management, 2010. Does fun pay? The Impact of Workplace Fun on Employee Turnover and Performance, by Tews, Michel, and Stafford, and that's in Cornell Hospitality Quarterly, 2013. My favorite journal. 4 times a year, all about Cornell Hospitality. And finally, Wine, Edgerton, Inzana, and Newcomb, writing Further Effects of Lottery Odds on Responding in the Journal of Organizational Behavior Management, 2017.
Whenever I see Byron Wine's name, I always want to say, Byron Wine is watching you.
Oh.
It's just me? It's just me?
Just you.
Fine.
And it helped me, Byron Wine. Do. I mentioned at the top, we're talking all about staff rewards, and some of the journal articles that I cited here for our discussion sort of have some titles of reward types. Let's talk a little bit for a minute. What are some examples of staff reward programs? You'd love to see, your staff get paid, right? And that should be good enough. They should do a great job all the time because they get paid, right?
That perhaps has been the general thought since about the introduction of the Industrial Revolution, right? You get paid, so you should keep coming to work, and you should be damn glad that you have that job.
I think it also in the Industrial Revolution was you should be glad that you didn't lose a limb today, and maybe you got paid.
Yeah, did you hear that stuff you missed in history class about the matchstick girls?
Oh, were they with the it was something radioactive.
Well,
right?
Yeah, that was one of the problems. Yeah. But also, like, they had to, like, pay to get the matches first, I think, and then...
Oh.
So then whatever surplus, they just had to eat, basically, and then, like, any matches that were broken, it was, like, this whole thing.
Oh, okay. And you know what? I'm thinking of I think they did watch, like, glow-in-the-dark watches or something, and...
Oh, yeah. I know the one you're talking about. That was also
teeth.
problematic.
It was so funny, and now your teeth would glow in the dark, but it was polonium or something terrible that... Everyone got cancer, and it was really bad.
1.21 gigawatts.
Yeah, and then they're like, oh, you guys, you're going to sneak out of work, huh? I better close all these emergency exits so you can't escape. And then there was a fire.
Was that the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory?
Yeah, that's all over the place.
Okay, yeah, you've conglomerated a lot of different tragedies together.
So we've gone way beyond that, you know.
We sure have.
You're not just going to get rewarded by not being murdered at your job anymore. No. Now, you might be expected to get something else.
Yeah, this term reward is just killing me, Rob. Like, I guess you're trying to use that to encompass things that could potentially be happening that are either potential reinforcers or perhaps just other additions into the working environment that are meant to function as perhaps reinforcers or overall bettering of the situation. Is that maybe where you're coming up with the rewards?
Well, more the sense of I always like to use reward when there's a sense of someone is going to deliver something, some stimulus that may or may not have reinforcing powers.
Oh, yeah. I say putative.
I say putative.
Well, you could say putative reinforcement.
Putative.
What about incentive? What would be the difference, I guess, between staff reward and
incentive? Is like you're dangling the carrot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's more like a bribe.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you can get your monthly bonus if you sell this many shirtwaists.
And that does seem to be similar to a lot of the...
Which are dresses, turns out.
A lot of the systems that we talk about in some of the articles we'll be talking about today is that if you do blank, then blank will happen.
Kind of.
It depends, right?
If you're lucky. It could just be, hey, maybe blank will happen, shrug.
Yeah, so I think there are a couple different ways that organizations tend to approach this. So the overall idea is, well, let's introduce some good things into the environment, right, for our workers, and that therefore will hopefully increase basically one of two things, either increase morale or increase productivity, or if we're lucky, it'll increase both. And that could be approached in maybe like kind of three different ways. So the first one would be a performance-based system of providing additional reinforcement in which an employee needs to do something specific and then receive the reinforcer for engaging in that activity with the plan that that's going to increase that behavior because it's a reinforcer.
Or maintain it.
Or maintain, yep. Or we could have a system where it's sort of just like blanket non-contingent reinforcement that's being introduced into the environment. This could happen based on a time-based system, right? So like every quarter you get some type of bonus perhaps, but it's not performance-based. Or the non-contingent production could be intended to sort of increase the overall EO in the environment in order to ideally produce motivation to engage in a particular behavior.
We all know what non-contingent reinforcement does, though. Not that.
Well, I mean...
Side effect. A possible side effect.
It's a possible side effect, sure. And it's just hard to know with NCR what you're really getting there, right? You've introduced new things, but you don't know if they've been applied contingently or if they're really going to make a change. So there's some overlap in those last two categories I named, but generally speaking, things usually fall into those categories. The other one I didn't really talk about here is group contingencies, because we don't have any articles today that focus on group contingencies. I think that could be its own category at a later time.
Writing it down for a new episode idea.
We talked a little bit about group contingencies.
I know, but we haven't had a whole entire episode on it.
No, we have not.
Yeah, so things that we could use: Employee of the Month, lottery systems, I caught you doing it, Post-its, raffles.
A lot of those are combined too. I think a lot of the lottery systems are, I caught you doing it, and now you get a lottery ticket to go into the lottery.
Right. That's something.
Yep. just sort of overall trying to make it a fun place to work.
Hawaiian
Parties,
Day.
Casual Friday.
Barbecues.
Mm-hmm.
Just like a general atmosphere. I don't know how you would define
Right.
that behaviorally.
Right.
But
Friendly atmosphere.
mm,
Yeah, you reinforce people saying hi to you, but not people.
maybe
right?
you know what? You remove some of the cues that mean stop having fun or stop laughing or talking.
Right. Maybe you remove some of the aversiveness of actual work.
Yep.
Like working.
You take
Just
out
Doing
remove
less
it all.
work at work. I like it.
I know.
I like where your head's at.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of different things.
So
you
there's
could
just
do.
some different tacks. There's probably a lot we didn't think to touch on either. But there's been some research in this area, but perhaps less again than one might think has been done to really parse out and determine if any of these particular types of staff reinforcement or environmental modification systems are really effective at producing either behavioral change or changes in sort of staff job satisfaction or morale, both of which are things I think we could agree that we would like to see increase.
Mm.
That being said,
Awesome. Yeah. You have a really awesome article.
yeah, so the 3 articles that we have each touch on a different area of that system that I just described. And the one that I'm going to talk to you guys about is the Tews et al. Article. And this is the one that's looking at sort of making background changes to the perceived level of quote unquote fun that's happening in the workplace with the intention of seeing, does that make a change in either job satisfaction or work performance?
Fun sounds fun.
Do it.
I'm doing it. So the Tews, Michel, and Stafford article, first let me say that this article is really cool, but it's not focused specifically on direct care staff.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
the population that they were looking at here were folks in the hospitality industry.
If the title Cornell Hospitality Quarterly did not cue you in that we're not talking about direct care staff, then nothing will.
Fair enough. Starting probably in about the 80s or so, organizations began to wonder if they might need to introduce some more fun into the workplace in order to produce changes in job performance. You guys know that this has been at least somewhat successful to know about it in the mainstream, right? Because what's the company that everyone talks about being so cool?
Google.
Right.
I win.
Yay, Jackie! Jackie knew a social reference.
Google. I'm actually in the know.
What comes to mind to me, Rob, is that show that we watched.
Silicon Valley?
Yeah, Silicon Valley. So I think they're supposed to be working at a place that's like Google, right?
They're working at Hooli.
Hooli.
That looks a lot like Google.
Yeah, it's like an Apple Google kind of hybrid.
Yeah, but it looks wicked fun, and it's got like comfy couches everywhere and big TVs and ping pong tables, but like way cooler than I'm describing.
Yeah.
Like really cool. Special snacks.
Yeah, like
all
vending
the things
machines
that you'd
are
want.
free.
Yeah.
The cafeteria's got all sorts of
All
crazy
these places
stuff.
to just sit around and like rap about your job and like brainstorm together, like very open floor plan.
They realize you're a terrible
you can
employee.
skateboard there.
They just put you on the roof and you work there until your contract runs out.
Yeah.
So you don't screw anything up.
But it looks really fun. So there have been some companies that have actually fully implemented this idea of fun in their workplaces, and they report that they've had success with this. But we really need to still define whatever it means to have fun at the workplace. So the definition that I'm pulling from is from Flug, 2008, and it's, quote, any social, interpersonal, or task activities at work of a playful or humorous nature which provide an individual with amusement, enjoyment, or pleasure.
Oh, that's like my entire job.
Oh.
JK.
JK.
That's like everyone's job.
Right?
So
Oh my
much fun
gosh.
all the time.
That's why you have to pick something that you love to do, first of all. That
You'll
helps
never work a day in
ameliorate
your life.
some of the concerns. But this
quote-
definition's pretty good.
It's not my
But
favorite quote. Even things that are fun, you know what? If you do them every single day, they start being less
oh no,
fun.
it just sucks the fun right out.
It's like making your favorite song your alarm clock in the morning. It sounds like a great idea at the time.
Or your ringtone.
until you're like, I hate that song now.
Hey
Can't
guys,
hear it again.
do you remember my ringtone?
Ring, 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 banana phone.
Not now, but it used to be.
That was like 15 years ago.
Yeah, and you guys
back when people had ringtones.
Still remember it.
Oh my God, of course I do.
Very memorable ringtone.
And everyone's like, turn your phone off.
Yeah,
phone.
And I bet when Jackie started using that ringtone, it was like, wow, Jackie's bringing a lot of fun to work.
Yeah, and everyone then was like
a month later, it's like, get out. This is the most punitive place I've ever been.
Yeah, so true.
I used to have a work cell phone, and to this day, when I hear the ringtone that is associated with that work cell phone, I still get like that feeling in my stomach, even though I don't have anything to do with it anymore. Yeah. Okay, so this Flug example of fun definition is pretty good, but we'd still, if we really wanted to, we'd have to define what amusement is and what enjoyment is and what pleasure is, but we're just going to skate on past that for the purposes of this. So there's some reported benefits that have been reported in research. Again, keep in mind, this is basically all survey research, right? That's like the territory that we're in here.
Did you have fun? Yes or no?
Yes or no? Tell me. But some of the reported benefits of having fun activities at work would be increased job satisfaction, increased morale, increased creativity, increased performance, and increased retention. And that was London et al. 2000 that gave us that. And also some reported benefits would be decreased tardiness, decreased absenteeism, and decreased burnout, which ties us back in to last week's episode, right? So maybe if you can make the environment overall more reinforcing, then people will be more likely to come, more likely to go the extra mile and contribute there and have it feel like an environment where they are happy and productive and needed. And all of those things are going to decrease burnout as well as increase their contributions. Why exactly would fun be beneficial? Here we're kind of in the theoretical realm. Presumably, Tews and colleagues said that you'd have more social supports at work, a more cohesive work environment. Ideally, something that's fun to attend would increase your motivation for people to work to their full potential and allow employees to work toward their performance goals. Now, we did touch again on goal setting last week and identified that likely that's something that can increase overall satisfaction at your job, but maybe not necessarily increase performance on its own. It might need to be paired with other things.
Well, the idea of the fun building sort of a camaraderie, a morale, and everyone shares it. That did also speak, I think, to the burnout articles last week, talking about moderators, having a support system at your job. If everyone is having fun most of the time, then you would assume that everyone is, I don't know, like pairing with each other in the sense of, I love being around these people, therefore when bad things happen, I'm able to handle them. My emotional exhaustion is not as high.
Yeah.
Or you're more
like you might have like a work wife.
Yeah, or you might be more likely to do work, right? Because you don't want to let the other person down, right?
Yeah.
Because you like them so much.
Yeah.
You want them to be
There's buy-in.
Right.
Yeah, my being here is important to me because I know it helps the people I work with.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I think all of that rings true to me as far as, my work experience too. Oh, and then they also said that fun could be beneficial because it might provide an enriched work environment in lieu of an increased salary, right? So if you can't provide people with a lot of money for their work, are there other ways you can sort of enrich that environment to make it, again, more meaningful and or more reinforcing?
Kind of reminds me too a little bit of Aubrey Daniels bringing out the best in people as an example. I think it was a car company where they were trying to get more productivity out of some of their engineers or some of their workers, and they found that if they just said, hey, when the work is done or you reach the goal, you guys can make whatever you want. You can make experiments or do whatever tests you want. And it was a win-win because it made the engineers excited because they got to work on projects that they were really passionate about. And then the car company doesn't care because I'm guessing their contracts all say, hey, if you make the new engine, that's our engine. So what do they care? They got productivity coming out, both ends, and everyone's having fun.
I love that.
Yeah.
Can't wait to make the next big engine.
So we're always making engines.
All right. So this article, it's different than the articles we usually read because, again, it's not behavior analytic per se. So this article was set up a little bit differently than the ones that we're used to reading, in that they laid out all of these different hypotheses.
Great.
Right? So generally in behavior analytic research, we don't lay out an hypothesis ahead of time, right?
We're just purpose, statement, something like that.
Right. We're like, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't make a prediction. We just see where the research takes us on the wind. So this is like social psychology.
Whatever that's
I'm sorry.
called.
So it's set up a little bit differently. And I'm just going to review the top 2 hypotheses that they put forward because the others kind of fall in line with those. So they have hypothesis 1A, fun activities will be negatively related to turnover. Hypothesis 1B, manager support for these fun activities will be negatively related to turnover. Hypothesis 2A, fun activities will be positively related to performance. And hypothesis 2B, manager support for fun will be positively related to performance.
So, Dinah, can you describe the difference between those two things, manager support for fun versus fun activities, or at least how they defined it in this study? Because the two sound very similar to me, and I know it felt a little like splitting hairs sometimes, I think, when they were discussing them in the literature, but their statistical results, spoiler alerts, were slightly different.
Oh, no, it was
two.
really important. Yeah, so you want me to talk about that now?
Yeah.
I kind of broke it down into 4 different dependent variables here. The first was whether there were fun activities present at all. They did a survey. Let me just go ahead and tell you. They did a survey to determine these results with 195 hospitality workers at a casual-themed restaurant.
Applebee's.
Right? My picture in here that I included for you guys is from Office Space.
It's very vivid.
With Jennifer Aniston not wanting to wear her 13 pieces of flair.
No, she was fine to wear the 13 pieces of flair.
Oh, right.
But it was an ill-defined expectation.
Yeah. They didn't tell her how many pieces of flair to wear. They said
They said the company minimum is 13. However, the manager, played by Mike Judge, was very clear that 13 pieces of flair was the expectation. However,
really should
it shows how you feel, so maybe you should wear more, but I can't tell you to wear more, but I'm constantly on your case about wearing more.
Fine. So I included the picture of you guys of Jennifer Aniston adding her extra flair.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So it's probably Applebee's or TGI Fridays or Chili's.
Yeah.
It's one of those kind of places. Okay. So they did a survey, and then they also, it's not just a survey in this one, which I did like. They included sales performance measures. So number of sales per survey participant for 2 weeks following the survey. So we actually have something that is a once removed behavioral measure, right? It's not exactly the behavior, but it's the money based on the behavior, so we'll take it.
Yep.
The DVs for that were, first of all, they surveyed them to say, are fun activities built into your work? And those fun activities were social events such as holiday parties, picnics, team building things like bowling night, or these days I feel like it would be like a paint night type of thing, right? Sales competitions, celebrations of work achievements like Employee of the Month, which we'll talk about in a minute, and recognition of birthdays or work anniversaries or stuff like that. So like nothing that's really like over the top.
Yeah.
Right? These are pretty standard types of fun activities that are happening here.
Happy birthday from all of us to you.
Thanks, Rob.
Is this environment more fun already?
So fun. I can tell in your voice how much you mean it. The second dependent variable is manager support. Okay, so then they had sections in their survey that included questions such as, my managers try to make working here fun. There were like 5 or 6 of those types of questions. Okay, so you could have fun activities, and you could also have how much the managers at your workplace seem to be trying to have people participate in those activities or have it feel fun.
So I think
work.
You would think of, again, of the either American or British version of The Office, where you have episodes that are all about quote-unquote fun activities. With the manager who is clearly trying too hard, sometimes then suddenly not trying at all, and how that really affects them. And I don't think anyone watches that show thinking, it looks like everyone's having a good time.
All right, the next DV that I already mentioned was performance sales per guest, right? So how much did your guest buy? And then the last DV was turnover, which they had to sort of determine later. But 30% of these participants actually left their job fairly soon thereafter, which is not uncommon, right? There's a high level of turnover in the hospitality industry, just as there's a high level of turnover in the direct care industry.
Like 50%. It was really high.
Yeah. But we determined that was the same rate for direct care with adults, was 45 to 75. So we're all in these high numbers together. So that does make the results that they found here, I think, potentially applicable.
Talking to people's hard.
So that's all that happened, right? They did a survey, then they did 2 weeks of follow-up to get some actual performance sales data, and then they did follow-up after that to find out who left their job. There were other hypotheses.
I like the one about we hypothesized that old people will hate fun. That was my favorite one.
They did find differences in fun.
Spoiler,
preference.
old people love fun.
I love fun.
That's not what they found.
Yeah.
What? Yes, they did. The old people like the fun.
No, they found out that there is a difference in opinion between what fun is.
Oh.
Right? So
But they had better productivity with the fun.
Right, but the definition of fun was different. So I might think bowling is fun, an old person might think puzzling is fun.
I think puzzling is fun,
I know,
and bowling is fun because I am an old person.
No, you're a middle person because you can straddle the old people, young person fence.
I don't know if either of those
I
things
think
are
if you're a millennial, but at least when this study was written, millennials were considered the young people and non-millennials were old.
Mm-hmm.
And you're sort of kind of a millennial, but not exactly.
I am not.
She's a Gen X.
I'm totally Gen X.
You're not really.
I am?
You're in between.
No?
You're the same as me. That 2-3 year period where you're not really Gen X, you're not really a millennial.
We're the Oregon Trail generation.
The Oregon Trail generation.
Okay. So hypothesis 1, which you may recall, was that fun activities would negatively relate to turnover. So if there are more fun activities, then the servers would be less likely to leave their job. That was not supported. So having fun activities did not make the participants any more or less likely to leave their job.
Okay.
Okay? Now
And that was intent to turnover, or that was actual turnover?
Actual turnover.
Okay.
The second part, they said manager support for fun would make them less likely to leave. That part was supported. Okay? Next up, hypothesis 2 was fun activities would be positively related to performance. So if there are more fun things happening at work, the participants would be making more sales. That was supported. The part of 2B was manager support for fun would be positively related to performance, was not supported.
So, Donna, you're going to have to go into a little more detail, because I know reading this, it felt like our results were people don't like fun, but sometimes they do. But they like it when their managers are fun, but they also don't.
Right, I know. So the turnover piece, I feel like there are a lot of variables there, right?
Mm-hmm.
There could be so many different reasons why people leave their job. Maybe the funtivities piece is just one small kind of component there. There's just too many unsupported variables here, personally, I think, to try to tease that apart. They included one graphic here, which, the rest of this article did go through the statistics machine, but they included one really nice, simple line graph for us behavior analysts. And that was the piece that I latched onto and made me love this article so much. So let me walk you guys through it. So it's just broken down into 2 groups. The participants who reported low levels of fun activities at their job, and the group that reported high levels of fun activities at their job. Then they also looked to see across those 2 groups which group reported that they had low manager support for fun. So how involved were their managers in creation and maintenance of fun, and a group that had high manager support for fun. And then they looked at the level of sales performance across all these different categories.
Sure.
All right. So for those individuals who reported low levels of fun activities at work, it didn't matter at all whether their manager seemed interested or disinterested in the funtivities. Probably because there weren't a lot of funtivities happening.
Sure.
And that's okay. So both of those groups had the lowest levels of sales performance of all these different categories. What's interesting, and I really kind of love this, is that when you looked at the groups that were having a lot of these fun activities going on at work, the group that had a lot of manager involvement and support for the fun activities had a much lower sales performance level than the group that had low manager support for these fun activities. It's actually quite striking when you look at the graph.
So is this an issue of, hey, people like fun activities And if their manager's a jerk, it's not going to help them at all. But if their manager is a lot of fun, it's going to kill their productivity because the manager's letting them get away with murder. So they're maybe less likely to quit, but they're also less likely to do anything productive.
It could be.
We don't know, right? They don't tell us.
Yeah.
They
probably don't know. They don't know either.
I think they didn't know, as opposed to they left it out for the sequel article.
Right. So is it that, my manager is my friend, and so I don't need to perform at a higher rate because that's not being held over my head in any way.
But I don't want to leave because I love this environment.
Right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So maybe you have sort of like reinforcer influx at too high a level, and you're not then seeing performance-based increases in responding. Or it could be that the introduction of the manager into the fun activities makes them overall less cool and less fun and less reinforcing.
Right. Potentially more aversive.
And there was a concern they raised, is that in previous studies, there are a lot of employees who report that when there are fun activities, they sort of are rolling their eyes. They're like, oh boy, it's bowling activity. There's a cynicism.
Yes, totally. Yeah. And you've all been there, right?
Yeah, I have.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. When you're like, I guess we should invite the boss to our, going out, but it'll, totally change the relationship, totally change the atmosphere of the fun night.
Easygoing curly hair. It'll be straight hair.
Yeah.
Not
to the boss might be a cool person,
right?
But it's just the dynamic is different, right? There's a power differential there, and it's just not the same.
Well, I think when you think of good bosses you've had, they're ones that you could have fun with. You might do something fun, but for the most part, you don't. Occasionally, you have it's the holiday party. You know what? I'm going to be there, and it's going to be a great time. But most of the time, it's you have a good time at staff bowling night. I gotta do something else, so I can't. I gotta work in the office during that time.
They hang back and let the employees get that social support from one another that we're all agreeing is an important part of.
So maybe it's that balance of, it's a fun manager, but not too fun. They have fun activities that they set up, but they're not necessarily involved in. Can we pick a topic where it's... And the answer was C, and that's always the answer, as opposed to these.
No.
If then if...
No, I learned early on that the answer is always it depends.
Oh, I'm tired of it depends.
That's the difference between you and I, Rob, because I enjoy living in the gray and you do not.
No, I hate it. Yeah. Can't do it anymore. I don't care who my manager is and how much fun I'm having.
So the last thing I'm going to leave us with here is that in one of my previous roles, we had a position on the team called the Sunshine Role. And that person's job, it wasn't one of the administrators, it was one of the direct care staff. It was their job to organize birthday parties and then one monthly get-together that was completely optional outside of work time activity for people to attend. And we made sure that the birthdays would get recognized, right? And everyone chipped in money. So it wasn't their responsibility in that sense, but they were the ones that kind of took the reins on that and made the funtivities something that the group was doing together and not the people on high were saying, oh, now you need to go have a bowling night and have fun at it.
Right.
And I'll be there to watch you. It wasn't like that. I never even knew what the Sunshine Roll activity necessarily was. And it was outside of work hours. But that was one way perhaps to try to make sure that there are some social things happening or that at least they're being set up and established, but you're not the one as the administrator or the supervisor who's there making sure that it happens.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Well, Diane, as much fun as talking about this article was, hey-o, why don't
I guess we actually can't invite Diana because then it won't be fun.
Is she the manager?
Ouch.
Let's take a little break and then we'll come back to talk about a few more rewards. We'll be right back.
Do you want to be a BCBA?
Sure, we all do.
Now you can come to Regis College in Weston, Mass. to get your graduate degree.
Choose from any one of these courses.
Masters of Science in Applied Behavior Analysis.
Masters of Science in Special Education.
Dual degree in Special Ed and ABA.
Or be eligible for your postmaster's certificate.
You can complete your degree and be ready to sit for the exam in 2 years. And our 2017 grads had a 100% pass rate on the BACB exam.
Come enjoy practicum placement support, ethics mini handbooks, PhD-level professors, small class sizes, and a service trip to Iceland.
If interested, don't delay. Supplies are limited. Learn more at regiscollege.edu.
Again, that's www.regiscollege.edu, regiscollege.edu. One more time, www.regiscollege.edu. See you there!
And we are back talking about staff supervision, specifically staff reinforcement reward type programs. We talked about all the fun you can have at work, but now let's move in to another topic. But wait, before we do that, I did have one thing I almost forgot.
What, Rob?
I want to make sure that everybody knows that one of the fun things we do here at ABA Inside Track is being ACE approved, so that by listening to us, you can earn continuing education credits. Hooray! Just listen to the show and go to abainsidetrack.com/get-CEUs to apply. You're going to need 2 secret code words that we've hidden throughout the episode. And the first of those code words is millions. 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 Like it would be nice to have millions of dollars.
Many millions.
Many millions. Millions of years ago, dinosaurs were a thing. How did they manage themselves? With fun activities?
No, with Employee of the Month.
Millions. Okay, let's get back to that Employee of the Month thing you're just saying there, Jackie. Tell us all about Employee of the Month and how it's probably really great and everyone should use it.
So, if you guys don't know what Employee of the Month is, or EOM, I like it when they're like, come on down for the EOM. The Employee of the Month means that one or multiple people will be recognized as doing an exemplary, is that the word? Exemplary. I think I was putting exemplary and exploratory together. An exemplary work performance, so they earn some sort of putative reinforcer for the work that they've done. And Employee of the Month is what many popular business management books say as a way that you can increase job performance. They say that Employee of the Month may recognize good performance in employees, and it may boost morale because it's like a good time had by all when we go and sit and see who got Employee of the Month. It also provides examples of what should be done. So if you win Employee of the Month that month, everyone should be looking to you to see what you've done so that maybe next month they could win it. But unfortunately, there's a lot of poo-poo in the economic literature surrounding Employee of the Month. They've suggested that the criteria to win is often not well defined, and it's usually not based on specific behavioral, but general, like, overall behavior. And I say...
Real go-getter.
Right? The go-getter. You know,
team player.
Yeah. Goes above and beyond. That's my favorite. And Daniels in 2009 did a study and looked at 77 employees who had a current Employee of the Month program in place, and not a single employee could name the specific behaviors required to earn Employee of the Month.
Yeah.
Which is amazing.
Because they
right?
probably weren't defined.
No.
Yeah, so that's one issue with Employee of the Month. Another issue may be that it's a winner-take-all mentality, right? So there's this competition on who's going to get Employee of the Month that month. And so here, when you're looking at it, productivity may actually produce illegal or unethical behavior because you're trying to be the best or strive to be the best. So that would not be great. And the number of people receiving reinforcement is limited, and so that may also set up a situation where there could be sabotage across your company.
Man, this must be some really good Employee of
right?
the Month reward.
Yeah, I know. I'm like,
I think of... can I do 2 TV references?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay. Within discussion of one article? Oh, my God. So I'm thinking of the
It's
show...
a new article.
Of the show Superstore with...
I never saw that,
with America...
obviously.
America...
Ferrara?
Ferrara and Mark McKinney from Kids in the Hall. And it's sort of set at a Walmart place. And there is a character, he does this less now, it's sort of less of his trait, but when he first started in the first season of the show, was very much that kind of brown-noser. He really wanted to win. And he would do things like comedic sitcom plots so that other people wouldn't be noticed for their good work. Or he'd tell the boss after someone did something like, well, I did mention that they should do that too. So that was the only example I could think of in which sabotage exists. Because I think in most of the jobs I've ever worked at, I was just happy to try to do a good job and to have things go well for the day. I really wasn't like, how am I going to make sure everybody knows that this person's bad and doesn't deserve a reward as much as me.
Right. Well, the authors do posit that people don't usually intentionally try to sabotage other people, right? But it may be the employees that may be more extroverted or maybe in the limelight more, maybe asking more questions that then their desirable behavior or their overall behavior may be reinforced with EOM instead of the people that were actually doing the same job or slightly different, but maybe may not as be in the limelight as much. And they said that, I love this. So in one of their quotes, it was like, with this type of incentive plan, the organization has essentially resorted to calling the vast majority of its employees losers.
Right?
Right? Because if you don't win,
you lose.
You lose. And so what does that tell people? That if maybe month after month after month, you're not getting employee of the month and you're doing everything that the employee of the month people are doing and you're just not understanding, that's not going to be really great for your morale, your productivity, and may cause turnover.
Yeah.
Another thing that they don't mention, but I think could also be a concern with EOM, is that public recognition is not always going to function as a reinforcer.
Mm-hmm. Sure, yeah.
So I know a lot of people that I've heard say, I never want to get Employee of the Month. It would be so embarrassing. I'd have to go up in front of the whole group.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love that they pulled into the economic literature here as well, and they suggested that productivity increases as the number of prizes increase. So just one employee of the month a month may not actually increase future performance, and research actually suggests that it may actually decrease and extinguish performance, because once you get it, it's not going to be likely that you're going to keep getting it over and over and over again, right? Like next month, probably not getting employee of the month again.
It's like a post-reinforcement pause of like 10 years.
Forever, right?
The rest of your employment with this company.
One other thing that I want to point out that they had suggested in the introduction that I could totally see is that if it is performance-based, where it's usually not, right? But if it is performance-based, it's likely that the same people are going to be receiving EOM over and over and over again because they are engaging in a high rate of responding. And then it's like, oh, Betty got Employee of the Month again, right? And so you've seen that. So it's less likely that people are going to work
Everyone
harder,
feels so defeated.
Right, because Betty is just good at her job.
Can I do a third TV reference, please?
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm the host, actually, so I could have just done this one.
You can do whatever you want.
I want you guys to feel like you're having fun as the, manager of the show. You know, you get to choose. This reminds me also of a Simpsons episode in which the only person who ever wins Employee of the Month at the nuclear power plant is Mr. Smithers, because he's
true.
a toady. You know, he's always kissing up to Mr. Burns. Except for the month when Homer wins Employee of the Month because he saved the plant from a nuclear meltdown. However, this also points to what you mentioned, Jackie. Another problem with Employee of the Month is, how do you know that you're rewarding anything and actually increasing any behavior? He was rewarded because he randomly pressed a button on his console after the meltdown was started because he wasn't doing his job of paying attention to the temperature of the reactor core. So he received an award for doing a random task, a random response, after failing to do his job.
That's funny.
So I think that really encapsulates a lot of the failures of Employee of the Month.
Yeah. So this article really wants to see, would a revolving EOM, so like what, you only get it once a month, you can't get it multiple times, does that actually reinforce performance, so increase performance in the future? If it does increase performance in the future, how permanent is it? And then I love the second question that they ask is they wanted to look at the gap between yourself and the first ranked employee. So if a staff member was second or third, and look at what happens if they're second or third and then they're not Employee of the Month. Does it make a difference in this winner take all program? So I like that question because I never would have thought of, like, if you're always second, does that make you work harder?
Yep.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Right?
Or give up.
Yeah. So they had 6 male and 6 female college students. What I found interesting is they received cash money.
Cash money,
$5.75, which is
good. A good little wage for their experiment.
Yeah, for 45 minutes and extra credit in a course. So that's kind of a lot. I don't know how they got through that through their IRB, but way to go them. And so they
also lied to them a whole bunch too.
Yeah, they did lie to them a ton. Yeah. And so they had...
My favorite experiments, the lying ones.
Right? So they had them come in, and they were told that they were on a team with 19 fictional other people. And their job responsibility for that time in session was to process checks. I love that. So they were looking at checks of various denominations, typing in what they had to do for their check. And the reason that they did the fictional characters is that they could prevent sabotage, right? So everyone was on their own fake team because those fake players would not sabotage.
Because they're fake.
Another thing that they made sure is that there was alternate activities available. So they could play solitaire, Minesweeper.
I saw that and I said, that's all I would do for my 575.
You know how good I was at Minesweeper?
Oh, you're fast, Diane. I remember you used to show me
so
how fast you were. You gotta pay for Minesweeper now. It's not free anymore.
Oh, God.
But yeah, so they could play that, and that's what they said in the instructions, that they didn't have to just do the activity. They wanted to make sure that they could do other things.
I like that.
Yeah, me too. It makes sense.
And that's realistic, too. If you were a processor, a check processor, you probably have something like that.
Yeah. So they could process checks or play the computer games. They had like a time, though. They couldn't only play the computer games. And the DV here was the number of checks that they processed accurately. And they used it within subjects' concurrent multiple baseline design across pairs of participants. And so what they did is they had the participants come into a room and they all sat at their little cubbies with their computers and process these fake checks. I love that because it sounds so boring, doesn't it?
Uh-huh.
But the independent variable here, it was that they were informed that they were the check processor of the week.
Yeah.
I love that. So here, they got their name out. Like, everyone else on the team knew that they were check processor of the week.
Except their team was fake.
But their team was fake, right?
So only they knew.
So, like...
And the experimenter.
Tina fake character got it 1 week, right? If they were doing their staggered baseline. And so here's the ways that they could get check processor of the week: by improving performance, going the extra mile, positively embracing the values of passion, trust, and commitment. This one I was like, yes.
Oh, I love it.
Of check processing.
Yep.
Making an outstanding contribution to the team, and then other achievements as notable. So they made a note here that these were so very clearly vague, right? Because that's what they've seen in the literature as the typical employee of the month was. So it's very vague. And so for the first experiment, they did it a staggered baseline across their participants, and then they informed participants they got check processor of the week, and then you did it, and then they just kept measuring the dependent variable across weeks after that to see if performance increased, decreased, stayed the same. Pretty easy. It's pretty awesome. And what they found is that performance decreased for 2 of the 6 participants and increased for only 1 of the 6 participants. Yeah, so...
Not great.
No.
Not great, right? And when you look at the graph, it's a really pretty graph, actually. It's figure 1 on page 315. You actually see fairly steady states of responding in baseline, which is surprising for all the participants. For the first participant, you see no change pre and post check processing of the week.
Nope.
No change for Carla.
These look like the fake graphs that you're like, I'm teaching you what a graph looks like in a textbook.
Right? I'm teaching you what a graph looks like when there's no functional relation.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right? For Francis, you see nothing.
Yeah, right.
For Greg, you see nothing.
Deb was not happy about her employee of the check processor of the week.
Right. So Deb just decided to stop working altogether.
She done it. She reached her life's goal.
And so did Helen. Helen's like, I'm not actually doing anything in session 8. I'm playing solitaire.
Yeah. Helen was never that great to start with.
That's true. So here, what they said is that there could be some limitations, right, of this type of research, is that the revolving nature of Employee of the Month may have suppressed performance because once they received Employee of the Month, they didn't get it again, right? So they just gave up, which what you saw with those last 2 participants. They said that maybe the check processing of the week wasn't valuable, right? Because it's not part of their everyday life. Then they said maybe it was valuable, but the format doesn't encourage specific performance expectations, right? So we don't know what they'd want to improve, or it's valuable and the format is not conducive, right? Because it's the winner take all mentality. Right. And so they decided to do experiment 2, where they used 6 other participants that were different from participant 1. And this seems a little bit mean. I'm not going to lie, where participants were told that they always place second to fifth in Employee of the Month. Like, you didn't get it this week, but you were second in line.
Well, the random algorithm was they would always come out as second, third, fourth, or fifth.
Or fifth, but never first. Ever.
No matter how well they did,
No matter how well they did, they would never get Employee of the Month.
You are such a loser.
Right? Here, you see very similar performance. You don't see any change, really, at all, across any of the participants, really. Gina, you saw once she got a little bit of an increase, but then dropped off dramatically. Dawn didn't do really great. So really, nobody did really great. And so the check processing of the week was $50. That was their reward.
So there was an actual reward.
Yeah, there was an actual reward, right? But maybe it wasn't valuable.
So they can never win
only in experiment 2?
Right, experiment 2.
Okay.
So there was a value. And I think they did a social validity questionnaire, right? Where they asked them, and a couple of them said, yes, I really want that award.
Barb and Andrea said, yes, this is extremely valuable. Whereas
their results
Aaron,
were crummy.
Yep.
And then I think the two people who said, I don't care about the stupid award, actually had the best results.
That's right. Yeah. The extremely valuable, how valuable did you consider the $50 bonus? Aaron had the lowest score, worth 5, and Barb and Andrea had the highest score as extremely valuable at 9.
Yeah.
Andrea's I love.
I mean, Barb was performing probably at the highest rate that you could go.
Yeah, and she said, I was trying to compete with other team members for the $50 bonus.
Yeah.
I love Andrea's. I wasn't trying to compete at all. So was Gina. I wasn't trying to compete at all.
Yeah, Gina's results are pretty variable.
Yeah. They're saying here, really, that overall, Employee of the Month didn't really do what you wanted it to do, right?
No.
So nobody really felt that, ooh, I feel much better now and I want to do more work. You kind of saw the opposite effect, right?
The two people who said they liked to do good because they wanted to beat their own score, competing against themselves.
Right.
But that seems more like I found fun at work than...
Right. And that was in social validity, too, right? And you didn't really see that depicted in the results, really. One of them, very marginally, right?
Small improvement. Like Dawn, I think was it Dawn?
Yeah.
Yeah, and she, a little better.
Yeah, so it's unlikely that it would sustain improved performance for the majority of your employees, right? So if you're like, here, I'm going to put this in for everyone, it's unlikely that it's going to work. It's going to work for those people that may want to, like you said, I'm gonna beat my own life, but very few of us are like that.
What's the
I think I would be a great check processor.
You would be. I would be the
while.
worst.
At some point, you'd be like, this is boring. I hate this job.
Maybe I could just think about other things, though.
I guess. Now, can I ask a question? What reason did they have for never doing an experiment where they actually tested, I'm going to tell you exactly how you will win as Employee of the Month, and then allowed them to win if their results improved by some amount? Like an actual, you can win Employee of the Month, and I will tell you how you will do it. I assume because they thought they would increase responding because that would be the same as any other reinforcement paradigm. Because
they were trying to mimic what an Employee of the Month situation actually looks like.
So
they didn't want to look at what if the Employee of the Month system were set up in a way that you would expect to see behavior change based on the research of behavior.
And that is what they say in the future research. Mm-hmm. So they say this study was intended to look at EOM as it is playing out in the real world. Future studies should look at EOM as it is performance-based.
But given
looking at the differences between employees that are top rank, medium rank, and low rank to see if there's a difference between those different types of employees.
I just would have liked that. If that were experiment 1, just to demonstrate this will produce any. Because if I said you will win $50 if you can do blank above a certain rate, and I saw a change in behavior, that would point to the idea that maybe Employee of the Month would be useful.
Right.
Whereas I think all this is saying, we don't even know if Employee of the Month is ever useful. It definitely isn't the way it's being, it's most likely not the way it's being run. But in most environments.
I think you raise a good point, but also agencies aren't going to be able to provide that nominal $50 for every single employee that maybe makes that goal, right? So if you're like, hey, if you do all of your data 100% correctly, my employee base of 700 people, right? Like that can get fairly costly, but that's not what they're asking here, right?
No, I understand.
Their question was, does Employee of the Month, how it stands, work?
But my question, I think I want answered, and maybe basic research does it enough that they didn't even need to answer it, is what if I ran this as perfectly as I could ever run this? Would I see behavior change? Because if the answer is no, I wouldn't, then I don't care about all the other variables of Employee of the Month. I know it will never work. If in its most pristine, amazing presentation, it doesn't change behavior significantly, great, throw out Employee of the Month. I don't even need to do experiment 2 and 3 after that. So that was more my question. I feel like they started in on the, like, does it work the way we're doing it?
Right.
Which is a good question.
But you wanted more.
But I wanted the question, is there any dimension in which, and I mean dimension in terms of
right.
The various dimensions of Employee of the Month in which this would work?
Sure. But you know what? The article that you're going to talk about next kind of answers. What? The article that you're going to talk about next kind of talks about how Employee of the Month may work.
I thought I got Employee of the Month, and I just have really been coasting for quite some time.
Coasting. Yeah. There's another article I didn't throw in here that does talk about this a little bit, and it's an article by Slowiak. And I'll just really briefly tell you guys, in that article, they picked some performance-based measure. Then they did baseline. Then they introduced a treatment package in which there was feedback provided as well as incentives provided for increasing performance. They saw a really nice jump in performance. And then they did a follow-up study in which they removed the incentives and they saw behavior drop back down to basically baseline rates.
Okay.
Right. So cash money.
The cash money really does produce changes in performance. Mm-hmm. And they didn't tease apart whether the additional feedback that they received did it in that particular study, but there's several by Slowiak that have looked at just incentives themselves, and they are effective, but they need to remain in place.
Yeah.
So that we know, and then I think the question really becomes, what if your company has limited resources, which pretty much every company does? How can you then best deliver those so that people feel that they have a chance at winning, and maybe they have a chance of winning more than once?
Yep.
Right.
Yep, and that brings up our last article, and perhaps my statement was somewhat pedantic in that we all know how reinforcement.
You, Rob?
Well, we all know how reinforcement works, but does it work when it's referred to as Employee of the Month? And then what would it need to work? That was more my question. I understand reinforcement is a thing.
Yeah, it's a very, very, very thin chance of winning Employee of the Month, but it's an independent group contingency if you want to get down to it.
Well, one of the ways in our last article by Wine and Friends, the
red and white. I'm just kidding.
The idea of the incentive is one that we would all love to use. If you could pay employees more for engaging in specific behaviors, you would expect to see a change in those behaviors. However, like we were just talking about, that's not always possible. So systems like lotteries have been in place to try to allow for the ability for staff to earn their way into the lottery. However, the odds of the lottery make it such that not every individual is going to get whatever that terminal, reinforcer is. Usually money, a gift card, benefit, whatever it happens to be. So they've been movie tickets, it's all sorts of things. A parking space,
free lunch.
I like the definition they use as lottery as a probabilistic bonus contingency. So you have these odds. So again, if you never played the lottery or done anything with the lottery, basically anytime you engage in a game where by entering it you have some sort of an odds or probability percentage that you will or will not win, that's a lottery. You're in a lottery. So even though everyone might enter the lottery, only one individual could win, or maybe multiple individuals will win, but there's some percentage chance that says how often you will win. It could be 100%, meaning you're definitely going to win. It could be 1%, meaning the odds are, 99 people are going to win before you win.
But may the odds be ever in your favor.
There have been studies looking at the use of lotteries prior to the Wine article we'll be talking about. So there were articles discussing on-time arrival, appropriate use of sick leave, use of appropriate treatment integrity. And so there is a research base saying that when lotteries have been instituted for engaging in specific behavior, and man, some of these behaviors in these other articles seemed very specific. I was like checking in at your medical place of work, I think is one of them. Then lotteries have significantly changed the behavior of the individuals who engage in the lottery. There are a lot of variables in a work setting. There's the gray area that we sadly live in, I think. So we've had lots of different lotteries where sometimes the number of people who are able to enter the lottery based on reaching some criterion of performance, that changes every single week or month that the lottery's in place. So you could be the only person who reached that criterion, meaning your odds are 100% of winning. Or you could be 1 of 10, meaning your odds are 10% of winning. So most lotteries are variable in terms of the odds, and there's no way to predict what those odds are going to be, which again raises the question, well, if you never know if you can win the lottery and the odds are changing every single time, does that impact the utility of the lottery as this reinforcement system in a place of work? So there have been 2 studies that Wine and I'll talk briefly about, in which the odds were directly played with to see if that changed the results of the lottery. So there was a Martins et al. Study in 2002, which looked at 3 children doing their math problems. And they found when the odds were 25%, 2 out of 3 children improved in their ability to do math problems. There was also another study by Gravina et al. In 2005, which looked at the odds of winning, and they used really high odds. So the odds of winning, it was a really easy response. It sounded like an easy response. They were signing in at an outpatient clinic, like I just mentioned. And the odds were manipulated to be either 75% chance of winning, 50% chance of winning, or 25% chance of winning.
Those are pretty good.
Yeah, those are really good odds of winning. Like if someone told me, do you want to pay $1 to join this lottery? You have a 25% chance of winning. I'm definitely going to, because those are pretty good odds, especially for $1. You know, as it gets to 10, 20, maybe they're not as good odds.
Right.
50%, you always go for the 50% for the 50% chance of winning, because those are great odds. You never have those odds in life.
Right, you don't.
So the question here, and this is where the extension of this research comes in, is what about lower than 25%? Because 25%, like we were saying, those are really good odds. And it's unlikely that a company will be able to have these 25% chance of winning odds, because then you'd have so many people winning the lottery that you'd almost be in the same boat you were in, where everybody wins a car kind of prize. It's not going to work.
I love winning cars.
Everybody wins a car.
I've never won a car.
Everybody look under your seat right now. Even you at home, look under your seat. You won a car, and you get a car.
I don't want to pay taxes on it.
Sorry, you didn't win it. I mean, maybe you won a car. I don't know. I don't know where you're sitting.
Don't look under your seat if you're driving your car. You already have a car.
Yep, you're in a car. Yeah, look under your seat. You totally have a car. You're in it.
Now you crashed it.
Yeah. No. Anywho, in this study, they took 2 female teaching assistants who had a very simple job to do, which was they would look at these notes from home. This is actually their job. Part of their job. They look at the notes from home, and they'd have to tell the teacher if there was something in the note that required immediate response from the teacher. So like Billy's sick kind of thing. That was actually a part of their job.
Socially significant, though.
And they're only looking at statements that I think that were less than sort of in tweets. You know, they were pretty brief little sentences. Or maybe they could be longer than tweets, but they were pretty short.
Tweet.
They made up a whole bunch of fake ones, and they would give them to the female teacher's assistants. They'd say, here you go, take a look at these. They'd have them go sit in a room and do as many as you can in 30 minutes. There was a computer with the internet. They had access to their phone, so they could ignore or do as much or as little of the task as they wanted in the 30 minutes. And then the experimenter left the room, gave them 30 minutes. At the end, told them this is how many you checked in that amount of time.
Okay.
It seemed like they needed to make a lot of these scenarios, because this, study went on long enough that they would need to make all these fake scenarios. So that's like the worst part.
I hope this was a master's thesis, and they started with one idea, and then the professor or advisor was like, oh, wouldn't it be nice if we added this? Wouldn't it be great if we added this?
Now we need 200 scenarios.
Yeah. So that was their baseline. So they didn't use real scenarios, but this was very similar to what their job actually looked like. Then in the experimental condition, what they were looking at again was the percentage of these sheets checked correctly. And correctly wasn't a problem. I think they only screwed up 3 times the entire study. So it was like what was the rate of their completion of this task? And they got paid. They were getting paid to do their job just like normal, regardless of what phase of the experiment they were in. And again, same thing. Here, you can work at your own rate. You got 30 minutes. And, oh, by the way, now we're starting a lottery. So if you can complete this many, and they use their baseline rates to create an improved rate that they would need to meet, so they had to get 20% over their baseline rate. If you can get to this many, you'll be in the lottery. And the chances of winning in the lottery are... And it was sort of semi-random. So it was a multi-element design. So it was semi-random as to which percentage odds they got. They started with 25% because that was the percentage that previous research had shown to be effective.
Sure,
they started there, and then after that, every single time they can win the lottery, maybe it's 12%, maybe it's 6%, maybe it's 3%. And that was it. And they were told at the end, yes, you met criteria to enter the lottery, and then they'd have a bag or hat or whatever with whatever number of blank slips of paper they needed to make it 25, 12, 6, or 3% chance of winning. They'd put the participant's name in, and then pull it out, and they'd show it to them. And either, you won, or, you didn't win. They could win $10 for winning the lottery, and then that money was not given to them until the entire study was done. So they could technically have won $10 times however many sessions there were in this study. They did not. They won like 3 or 4 times each. So, what were the results? Well, for one of the participants, Lori, her rate of responding increased across all 4 percentage odds. Didn't really matter what the odds were. She did better than all of them. There was only one 3% lottery where she fell below her goal that she needed to. So she did really, really well.
We want her.
Yep. The other employee, Donna, did really, really well with every percentage except for 3%, where you did start seeing a decrease in her rate of responding. Also, 2 out of the 4 times in which the lottery was that 3% odds, she didn't even reach the goal she needed to even enter the lottery.
She threw paper in the air.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm out. I'm done.
What
with
time
this.
is it? It's blank this blank o'clock, according to
Donna?
according to Donna there. The question was raised, well, was it because they won enough or they didn't win too much? And so looking at how often they won, they really won during the other conditions, but they actually never won when it was the 6% condition. However, their responding still stayed high. They also never won during the 3% condition, and their responding changed for one participant, didn't change for the other. So it wasn't like, oh, they were winning over and over, though there's a sense maybe there could have been carryover effects with the multi-element design. But,
Sure.
You know, they couldn't tease that out with the study. They also then brought up this random anecdote where they're like, and then one time we did this survey, and these experimenters, we did a survey where one year we just said, fill out the survey. And then the next year we said, fill out the survey and you have a 6% chance of winning $10. And we got more surveys back that year. You know, I don't know why they felt the need to add that in there. It's like, I think they really wanted to make the conclusion 6% is the number you need in your lottery.
They
the
wanted
odds you
something.
need.
Yeah.
So they sort of threw that out there as opposed to, well, 1 out of 2 participants didn't do as well when it fell below 6%. I mean, those were the results.
They need more participants.
Yeah, this survey that we did this one time with or 2 times with parents was sort of like, that's great. Thank you for sharing. I don't know how that got in there.
Yeah.
I love
I
that.
also don't think you can dismiss the possibility of carryover effects here.
No.
Yeah, you
because
really
they're telling them, like, these are the odds of you winning the lottery, but I'm not sure if there's a lot of evidence that those types of rules govern behavior better than the actual winning of the lottery, right? So if you like took a look at how often they won the lottery, it's much higher than any of the percentages that they're putting forth as being the percentages that you might win.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So
yeah, and
to think about that.
Their conclusion was pretty strongly 6% seems to be the magic odds for your lottery. I think that's a little premature. They certainly bring up some reasons that they might agree with that statement, that their recommendation's a little premature. Certainly, they kind of go into the idea of like, you know, maybe people prefer random ratios, just like in the basic research. So if you find 6% doesn't work for your lottery, just change it up every now and again. So, okay, I guess that's something. There's also the issue of, in reality, the odds of winning the lottery are going to be based on how many people enter the lottery.
Right.
So I don't know if you could do a lottery easily at work where it's flat 6%. That's your chance of winning no matter how many people enter it.
But you could do it based on number of tickets that are in the bowl. It could be that you could win, be issued a lottery ticket for doing a variety of different behaviors, and then you keep track of how many you've put in the bowl, and you say, well, we have 100 entries this week, so we're going to pull 6 for 6 prizes.
Okay. To get your 6% that way.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So certainly, that's a good idea.
So people might have different numbers of entries, but the overall chances of winning are 6%.
Okay. Sounds good. And then again, it's great that, you have this maybe magic number for lotteries, but also there's no research saying that lottery systems work better than any other incentive system. So it may even be an issue of 6% is a great percentage because it's great, economically, and apparently it keeps responding high. But there could be something that's way better to provide your employees that also is free or low cost that gets even better rates of responding. It has higher social validity, maybe. They didn't even really check that in this study. So lotteries, 6% is a magic number for lotteries, maybe. Kind of, sort of.
Maybe. I think more research is needed.
Oh,
more
definitely.
Research.
Well, why don't we move into Dissemination Station to wind down our supervision talks.
Red and white.
What are our take-homes? I think the problem we've had with this Supervision September is that I don't think we've been able to get a single dissemination station where the answers were at the end where, here are your take-home points. Do these 5 things and you'll be the best supervisor. Versus, here are some maybe things that you could sort of do, and who knows if they're the best responses, but they seem to be okay or better than nothing.
That's a little bit where the literature's at right now.
Yeah. What places could we start with? So if you were going to take something from this research, what would we recommend?
I would not recommend doing a winner takes all employee of the month every month.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I may suggest that, as a Diana, stole the show and told everyone that maybe multiple prizes each month for multiple people. No, that's okay. Might be a better way. Maybe even tying in the lottery like 6%. You know, look at the population and have 6% win each month. So you could have the opportunity to win every month. And I would also recommend that it's performance-based, right? So be more specific about your general requirements and not say like, oh, went above and beyond, or a commitment to
constructive with your feedback.
I like the that you demonstrate a commitment to passion and trust, because that could mean so many things.
The other thing we haven't talked about is the value of being a caring, attentive, and reinforcement in the form of praise delivering supervisor, and how valuable
that is
those things can be as reinforcers as well.
We talked about that last year, so I'm assuming all the listeners are doing that perfectly and we don't need to worry about it anymore.
Oh, okay, fine.
But if you haven't listened to that, that's a really good series of episodes that you could listen to.
If they didn't, then they've just made an ass out of you and me.
Right, but if you're worried, you're like, oh, my company doesn't have the money to buy, $10 gift cards and give them out every week to 6% of our lottery winners. Like, that's just our budget for the year, or whatever it might be. There are a lot of other ways that you can introduce reinforcement into your work environment, and those things can be really valuable too.
And it might be helpful to ask people what they want.
I think we also have the variable of fun. There is a place for fun in the workplace. The issue is, what is it your workplace values? Is it low rates of turnover or productivity? Because there's no easy answer to get both. It's sort of a weird fine line if you want to have both productivity and low turnover. Is it the fun? Is it the manager being fun? Is it just the fun activities? And balancing them. There's a balance there. But I think that's the other thing to keep in mind, is there's not, if we just have a bunch of parties, then we'll see employees never quitting. The stats don't back that up. But, I'll just be the fun boss. You might actually have less people quit. You also won't have anyone doing their jobs as well as they should be, statistically, at least from this one study. So there's a real balance there. So there is a place for fun in the workplace. What is that place?
It's after hours.
It's after hours. You as the manager are probably not totally involved, but maybe your spirit is there. I don't know. I don't know. And then lotteries might not be a bad thing to look at if you want a quick replacement for Employee of the Month and you have to have a reinforcement system in place. Lotteries might be one to look at. And if so, 6% might be the odds. Well, another fun Supervision September has come to a close. And once again, we've learned more about supervision. And the main thing we've learned is there's so much more that we all need to learn about supervision.
'Tis true.
Keep that in mind. But there are definitely some concrete take-homes that we hope you got certainly from the whole month, but even from our episode today. Before we break, let's make sure that you get that second secret code word, and it is orange. ORANGE, orange. This pen is orange. This fruit is orange, and is named orange.
Did you know, Rob, that nothing rhymes with the word orange?
Nope. I did.
Darn it.
Maybe I didn't. Let me think. Smorange. Porange.
Forange.
Orange. Orange. All right, everybody, that brings us to the end of the episode and therefore the end of Supervision September. We really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, why not leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. We really also appreciate it if you subscribe to the show so that you'll get every Supervision September magically downloaded into your podcast machine. If you have subscribed, you might have noticed that we got a little bonus at the end of August after last month where I talk about some of my favorite summer reading books. So if you skip the bonuses because you can't earn continuing education credits for listening, well, you should listen to this one. It's way fun, and I had a good time reading it, so I hope you have a good time listening to it as well. You can find us online at abainsidetrack.com. We're also on social media everywhere as ABA Inside Track. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, Instagram. Diana puts up a really cool visualization, I guess we're calling it, illustration poster that goes with every single episode to kind of summarize what we're talking about. That's always very exciting.
It's our infographic show notes.
Infographic show notes. Yes, I knew there was a fancy name for it. You can also find these episodes posted on YouTube with the subtitling feature enabled. And of course, if you have any ideas for topics or thoughts you'd like to share about what we've been talking about on the show, please feel free to reach out and email us at abainsidetrack@gmail.com. We'll be back next week with another full-length episode, but until then, keep responding. Bye!
Bye!
Arrivederci!